Welcome back. It's like we're going to invite you to take your seats. And the energy is fantastic. We definitely are all Martian, but I want to go ahead and adhere to our schedule as best as we can. Thank you very much for your patience and grace. It's no small thing to do multiple streams, and we are very indeed grateful for you guys being here. It is my great privilege to introduce Allyson Reneau. She graduated with her master's degree from Harvard in International Relations and U.S. Space Policy. She is an author, a mom, a humanitarian, an international motivational speaker, a world-class gymnastics coach, and a member of the Explore Mars Board of Directors. We are very fortunate to call Allyson our friend and have her here in person today, as usually she is somewhere traveling and making space accessible for students all over the globe. Allyson will be moderating our next panel, International Space Relations, Space Diplomacy, and Security in Challenging Times. Please make welcome Allyson Reneau.
Love you. Love you. Thank you. During World War II, two powerful nations, the Soviet Union and the United States, set aside their ideological differences to defeat Nazi Germany. But following this war, America feared the spread of communism and the Soviets the spread of capitalism, which developed into the Cold War. And the underlying threats of this tension drove the acceleration of space technology and development. In 1957, the Russians launched Sputnik and flew the first man in space. Suddenly, the space race was on, with a series of back-and-forth achievements, eventually culminating with the Apollo 11 lunar mission. In 1984, during President Ronald Reagan's State of the Union address, he committed America to build a space station with its friends and allies, believing that international cooperation was the best option. Finally, in 1993, President Bill Clinton redesigned and rebranded the space station and invited the Russians to collaborate. These two world powers would set aside their differences and create what we now know as the International Space Station. The ISS took more than a decade to assemble. The result is a remarkable cooperation between 16 countries, and the ISS has been permanently occupied by astronauts and cosmonauts for 22 years. Now, space currently fuels all sectors of national powers, including diplomacy, economics, information, communication, navigation, exploration, as well as militaries. Historically, space was a peaceful domain, but that is no longer the case. Space has become a warfighting domain, along with air, land, and sea, and is contested with a full range of threats. Many countries are concerned about protecting their space assets. And now with the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine, followed by sanctions on Russia by the international community, the diplomatic relations of the ISS partners has been strained and jeopardized. But even though much of our world history has contained conflict and war, the cooperative success of the ISS still carries the hope that diverse groups can peacefully coexist. The International Space Station has been and remains an extraordinary victory for the entire human race. Today on our International Space Diplomacy panel, we are privileged to have two very experienced and successful space professionals. First, we have Sam Scimemi, which we are overworking. Thank you, Sam. Who was the director of ISS at NASA headquarters for many years. His current role is the senior assistant in the Human Exploration and Operations Mission Directorate at NASA headquarters. He is a key advisor for the implementation of NASA's Moon to Mars exploration endeavor, which includes the Artemis program that will return U.S. astronauts to the moon for the first time in the 21st century. Sam, we're grateful you were here and that you've taken time to share your expertise with us today.
Thank you.
Also, we have with us Dr. Mir Sadat, and we are extremely happy you have joined us. Dr. Sadat served as the director of the U.S. National Security Council and led the interagency coordination on defense and space policy issues. During his time in the White House, the NSC oversaw the establishment of the U.S. Space Command and the U.S. Space Force. Amazing. In addition, Dr. Sadat is a professor at the National Intelligence University in Washington, D.C., where he specialized in space policy, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Iran issues. We look forward to hearing from both of you amazing men today. Sam, would you like to share your presentation with us now?
Sure, go ahead. I think you wanted to roll the video
roll.
again. Okay.
All right.
We're going to the moon to explore, and we're going to the moon for scientific discovery.
Our destiny is always to go and see what's further and what's next.
The moon is a stepping stone, and the moon is a place we need to learn how to live so that we can continue to go beyond.
We are focused. We are focused on all that lies before us. Only together will we bring to life this global ambition of returning to the moon. And while our work is far from finished, we've never been closer to seeing a new generation step beyond our home planet. We are building on the achievements of those who came before. The giants who conquered gravity and raised a banner in the heavens, they beckon us to go farther, to the moon and on to Mars, to seek a deeper understanding of our universe and bring all that we learn home. The daily efforts of thousands of suppliers from all across this country and around the world fed into stunning milestones and laid the groundwork for history.
Launch team, go.
Artemis has been woven into our culture. It has fostered collaboration across the aisles and across the ponds. It has grown beyond plans and preparations to include hardware and software. And now, it has a heartbeat. You can feel the momentum. It is undeniable. We are going. And together, we will see Artemis light the way. We are going to the moon to learn how to live on other planets for the benefit of all.
Let's go.
Did you bring enough patches for everybody?
I got some pens back at the hotel room.
Sam, I am the mother of 9 ambitious daughters. 2 sons.
You've accomplished way more than what I have ever
I was an
had.
only child. That was not the plan. But I'm from Oklahoma. We never know what causes it. So these competitive daughters are always competing with each other. So your work and our work can't be much different when it comes to peace and cooperation. Can you tell us what lessons can be drawn from the ISS experience relevant to international cooperation for human missions to Mars?
Yeah, I think that, life changes here on Earth. We go through problems not only within countries, but across countries as well, as has been highlighted the last few months here. But there's been challenges, previous challenges before, over the many years of space station. Station was created in 1984 by President Reagan, and it evolved again under the Clinton administration. What has developed is actually a community of scientists and engineers across cultures, across countries, and we have a bond, if you will, between all our countries that have participated on the ISS. And that bond has spilled over into other areas of cooperation between countries as well. So I think the station has proven that hey, we can cooperate even during tough times and difficult times here on Earth. We have common objectives and common goals on board the space station, and we're hoping to continue those common goals and common objectives to Artemis, to the moon, and eventually to Mars.
Great answer. Another question I think is on the mind of a lot of people here is, how has the Russian invasion of Ukraine affected the cooperation on the ISS so far?
Yeah, so despite all the problems and challenges we're having here on Earth with sanctions and the like, day-to-day operations on the space station are the same as they have been before. So we have Russians here training in the United States. We have Americans and other ISS participants training in Russia, so that the day-to-day operations are continuing as they have in the past.
And how do you see the lifetime of the ISS playing out?
So as many of you may know, the Biden administration has given us the green light to continue space station to 2030. Congress is now evaluating that. All of our partners to date have expressed their interest in going to 2030 as well.
Wonderful.
So good news.
Mir, a few years ago, you came to this conference and you warned the audience about the rivalry between the United States and China in space, the implications for national security, commercial, and scientific pursuits. Are we in a better place today?
I think we're in a more competitive place today. As was mentioned, space really does unify humanity for the most part. And even in our domestic policy, in our US policy, you will see space experts from both sides of the aisle come together and have very fruitful and promising discussions. There's not a lot of partisanship when it comes to space. With space, though, we have two components, right? We have low Earth orbit, which has been said that it's contested, congested, and we really need to figure out space traffic management for low Earth orbit because it's as if you are driving in a street that doesn't have any lanes, that you don't know which way is which. So if you're a small startup company, you invest a lot in your satellite technology. And if you take a hit, if your satellite is in a conjunction or there's debris generated and you lose that satellite, your whole company can go down, right? If you're a big company like SpaceX, you're worried as well because it's a constellation and billions of dollars and your reputation and lots of lives are on the line. And so this is the first time where you see small companies and large companies come to the government and say, help us, regulate us. When you look at it internationally, you see the same thing. The recent mishap almost between SpaceX and the Chinese was a good example that we do need some kind of cooperation, right? And if we don't have that, then there's going to be potentially the low Earth orbit might be not usable for a long time. When you go beyond that and we go into geo and ex-geo, moon and towards Mars, those are important aspects as well because then the supply chains, right? As you venture to moon, you're going to have stops. As you venture to Mars, you're going to have stops, just like gas stations on a road, right? For repair, fixes, stuff like that. Who owns those? Who can do mining? Who owns the property rights for that? Whoever gets to the moon first may have property rights, right? Those might be contested in court. And as we know our courts, these will be litigated for years to come. So as it looks like right now, our main rival is not Russia for that aspect of space. It is China, and it's remarkable what they're doing. And if we don't get behind NASA and we don't unify behind NASA and our like-minded friends who believe in democracy, who believe in equal rights, who believe that space is a sort of a domain that everybody should be using for peaceful purposes and not just for exploitation and extraction and stuff like that, then we will be heading towards conflict with a major rival here on Earth. And so I think the stakes are really high and the pressure points are getting to that point where if we don't make quick decisions on low Earth orbit with space traffic management and how we invest outside of low Earth orbit, we're going to lose our potential influence in the world as the leader of the free world.
So does it matter who gets to the moon first again and who gets to Mars first?
It does. And I would love for the United States, along with our allies, to be setting their footprints after so many decades on the moon. For us to be, creating the rules of how the moon should be, extracted, things, rare earth minerals, right? How those should be extracted, how we need to consider the historical artifacts of the moon, right? Those respects, because I do not think that our strategic competitor, China, respects those things the way we respect them. We respect the Earth. Right now we're having issues with the Arctic, and we're saying if the Arctic melts, what about all those artifacts that are there, right? My personal opinion, I do not think that the Chinese have such a appreciation of that as we do, or the Europeans do.
When you were at the White House, you worked on a few projects that resulted in the president signing executive orders encouraging use of nuclear power and propulsion in space. What was your aim and what was your vision?
Yeah, that was a really good one. So I have a Navy background, and in the Navy we've used nuclear-powered submarines for a long time, and thank God there have not been any mishaps on the maritime domain, and if there would be, it would be catastrophic, right? And so why can't we do that in space? And if we do that in space, the space is very cold. So you can't just depend on flimsy solar panels to get you to Mars. You're going to have some power generation, and also for 3D printing, to build a habitat on the moon, to use the materials on the moon to build that. You don't want to take materials from Earth to the moon. That's something that is a no-no. And of course, if you want to get to Mars, the estimates are maybe up to 2 years each way. If you use nuclear power propulsion, you may be able to reduce that to 90 days, 120 days each way. The body's exposure to radiation when you're outside of the radiation protection zone will be minimized. Your travel time will be economized. Your time on Mars could be maximized. So that was the purpose of pushing nuclear power propulsion and power generation in space, so that we can have that, as well as you're going to eventually have humans in low Earth orbit and other orbits potentially, and we need more power for those humans, and power that is clean. So I know that's a touchy topic, but I mean we've been doing it in the Navy for decades, and no environmentalists have been successful to show any instances of pollution anywhere or harm to the environment.
It's interesting. My oldest son was a nuclear engineer in the Navy.
Perfect.
And he served on the USS Norfolk attack sub as the nuclear operator. And it's very safe.
Yep.
And can be transmitted into space, I think, quite easily. I think when we hear nuke, we get nervous, right? Sam, will the first human missions to Mars be an international effort? And if yes, how do you see that playing out?
Yeah, so I think going to Mars is just going to be an extension of our partnership from ISS to the moon to Mars. I think that as we develop the partnerships and that all the technologies will develop, in corporations with our allies, it'll evolve into something. We've been predicting the way we're going to go to Mars now. All our architectures, we have thermal, nuclear electric. We have all chemical. We have hybrids. We have all these different types of ways to get to Mars. And as Mir was saying, in some technologies we can get there quicker. Some technologies are more longer. I think in building that whole infrastructure for transportation, for habitation, for landing, for surface operations, and you just go on and on. There's multiple opportunities for international partnerships to go to Mars, and we're building them right now, going to the moon as well. So all those, including cooperation in the nuclear area as well with our international partners as well. That's also a possibility. In
addition to our partners, how do you see U.S. industry and the private sector involved?
Well, private sector has always been intimately involved with NASA. NASA, everything we built to go to space station and to the moon and the like is all built by industry. Now we have a different model of where we're relying on industry to provide services. As industry's capability has matured over the last several decades, as many of you know, we buy services for a lot of what we do today. So it's not a competition, especially with our own industry. It's a partnership with our industry. And if one particular industrial partner makes huge progress and leapfrogs others, all the better for our joint efforts into getting out of low Earth orbit.
Great answer. What major capability gaps exist for sending humans to Mars at this point?
Michelle Rucker is here. She can probably give you a list of about 20 things. My top three, I got top three, right? First of all, keeping humans alive and happy and productive to Mars on the way back. Our first mission, our first couple of missions maybe, it's about 2 to 3 years round trip, keeping them alive in free space and on the surface. As many of you know here, space is not kind to humans. It actually wants to kill you. Everything about space, everything about the lunar surface, the Mars surface, everything. And there's only one thing that keeps, there's two things that keeps us from dying. One is technology and the human research that we're doing and the countermeasures that go along with that. So that's the first one. The second one is actually landing on the Martian surface with a human scale. As most folks may know, we've only landed about 1 metric ton of payload on the Martian surface. For humans, we need anywhere from 20 to 40 metric tons. So that's quite a large leap in technology. And the third, but not least, is actually the transportation system to get off the Earth and into orbit and onto Mars, that transportation system, whether it be all chemical or some kind of nuclear technology, that's the third area of the largest gap, I would say.
Dr. Sadat, when you worked on standing up the U.S. Combatant Command, U.S. Spacecom, and the newest military service, U.S. Space Force, can you tell us why both of them were stood up and what their role is?
Yeah, and that's a good question. So you mentioned during your opening that space is now a warfighting domain. I would say space has always been considered a warfighting domain, right? Because from the earliest days when Arleigh Burke wrote his memo in '56, telling the sailors to make sure that they harness the full capabilities of satellites. Right? From that early day, from my history, when I went back and to see where Navy really goes back to, it's this one memo that we point to, that from that is our U.S. constellation now, right? It informed the sailors at sea, right? Which way to go, which way not to go, and then, of course, other types of intelligence would tell them where the adversary or enemy is, that kind of information. However, what we saw with the first Persian Gulf War in the 1990s, we saw precision in our targeting of enemy installations, right? So we have a database where everybody catalogs hospitals, schools, and so forth, and those are no target lists, right? The rest of it then is kind of open based on what every country's assessment is. And so based on that, we saw for the first time space being leveraged as a very precise capability to help our bombers target enemy locations, right? Of course, we want to minimize enemy combatants getting killed, but we want to destabilize that capability that they have, whether it's a rocket facility or a tank repo or anything like that. And of course, as you go forward into the 2000s with the counterterrorism, President Obama and the National Security Council were personally approving every single strike, right, on ISIS and Al-Qaeda and Taliban and so forth. It was being signed at the White House. And that vehicle was taken out, that hooch was taken out, whatever. So we saw how space was then being leveraged, right, the persistent eye that's out there. And as we move forward from sort of the one-off lone wolf attacks or the terrorists, we go now, as we're seeing now with Ukraine, we're seeing nation states potentially going to war, and they are, Ukraine and Russia, and others getting sucked into this mess. You see what the capability that space will play in this. However, there are also other things that are important about this. It's not just what the space provides you, but what can I do to your space asset, right? Can I laze it? Can I jam it? Can I ASAT, right? Can I have an anti-satellite weapon, kinetic? Can I fry it, right? There's also those kinds of capabilities. And what does that mean, right? And so we've seen that, we've experienced that. And so the last two DIA, Defense Intelligence reports, highlight that, 2019 and the 2022 one. And so for the last 5-6 years, we saw that, and the DoD finally declared, after much reluctance, and to a lot of our peaceful users of space like NASA and NOAA, who we showed the evidence to, and they, as an interagency, we agreed that space is now a warfighting domain, which is very different than the weaponization of space, right? We don't want to conflate the two. And so as that, we started looking, saying, okay, if space is a warfighting domain, and Navy in the sea is a warfighting domain, and the air is a warfighting domain, and land and cyber, how are we reorganizing our forces that deal with space? So one of the things that happened in 2001, we disbanded U.S. Space Command, which was a combatant command, part of the Rumsfeld Commission. So we looked at it again, and we said we're going to bring that back. And so the Space Command out in Colorado, which potentially may move to Huntsville soon, right? Looks at everything from 100 kilometers above sea level to infinity. So that's their geographic domain. That's really big. That's bigger than Pacific Command. And
they don't have as many ships.
Not yet. But a combatant command's purpose is diplomacy, right? They engage in partner diplomacy. They protect commercial vessels, right? In the Pacific domain, you have what we call freedom of navigation operations. So if someone is creating choke points and not letting commercial ferries and tankers go through, you keep on sending ships through there so nobody can block it, right? It's a constant, hey, don't block this section. And then they also come to the rescue of people who have SOS, even if there are enemies. Even in Central Command, even if an Iranian vessel sends up a SOS, American Navy sailors will come to their rescue, right? They are human beings. So Space Command has that type of responsibility. So as such, General Dickinson, who is there right now, Army General, his job is to go and represent the U.S. with other of his peers around the world. So we thought that that was an important thing to have. So U.S. Space Command draws forces from all the services, Navy, Army, Marine Corps, Air Force, and Space Force. And these services, military services, feed them people. Ironically, you'd be surprised that it's actually the Army who has the most number of people at U.S. Space Command, right? As such, we needed a service that focuses on space because the Air Force has 3 really missions: air, space, and cyber, right? And space, if it's a warfighting domain, is too big for one service to be splitting their time on. And so the consensus with Congress, right, they passed the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, was we're going to split this portion over. We're going to take these other portions from the other services, and we're going to create something called the Space Force. Not the show on Netflix, which is canceled. I'm so disappointed. A lot of the internal Pentagon drama, though, was pretty spot on. But the Space Force now is a service solely focused on space, right? They're focused on threats in space, from the ground to space, threats in space from space to space, and of course, what they haven't thought about yet potentially, I don't speak on behalf of the government, but there could be potentially one day threats to Earth from space, right? You've heard of space rods, the rods from God. You can YouTube clip it and stuff like that. And so we needed a service who can think, unrestrictedly on that aspect, right?
Think the expanse.
Yeah, exactly, expanse. And then, of course, the Space Force, because the Air Force used to provide a lot of astronauts and officers to NASA, the vision was that Space Force would have a very healthy relationship with NASA, so you would bridge this civil-military divide that rules over our view of space, which Russia does not have. And China has completely merged civil and military. It's one, right? There is no difference. It's very hard to split it. But we really do need that. We need to sit with our civilian users of space and understand why they're saying what they're saying to educate us in the DoD. And then sometimes they need to listen to us just to go, wow, I never thought of that perspective. And so this was the purpose and the intention. And as we are going into the 23rd century and 24th century, that we start looking at space as part of the different domains that war could take place in or traverse it through.
Thank you. Very informative. If you have any questions for our panelists, feel free to step forward to the mics, one of these two here, and we would love to hear from you. I know that you probably have lots of questions. While we're waiting, do you think that active armed conflict in space is inevitable?
You want to take that, Sam?
Thanks a lot, Mayor. I would hope not. Yeah. I would hope not. I would hope that as human spaceflight and other spaceflight evolves over time through the decades to come, is that we are able to work together. I know that we have, as you mentioned, Mayor, competition with other countries. I hope that maybe one day, like we happened with Russia, is that we would be able to cooperate when the conditions are right. When our stakeholders in Congress and the White House, figure that out, and other stakeholders in the defense industry figure this out, maybe one day we will be able to have a broader cooperation. I don't know, Mira, I don't know if you see it that way as well.
No, I see it that way. I think the most important thing is, so our highways in the U.S. were really influenced by Dwight D. Eisenhower. Like from Lafayette Park there, one day he decided to get in a caravan. In 84, 90 days later, he made it to like Napa Valley, California. And along the way, a lot of his trucks broke and people got sick. And it's almost, it was like Oregon Trail, in real life. But think about space like that. Space has never been closer to us. In theory, you could get to space in less than a week to, the space station, right? Much faster than what Eisenhower did, over a century ago. A couple of things we need to do. One, we need to look at space as an infrastructure, right? We need to look at it. Right now, the Department of Homeland Security has 16 listed infrastructures. We need to designate space assets and the information and capabilities derived from that as an infrastructure. Without GPS, without banking, without my kids being able to get on Wi-Fi, like the world would fall apart for my kids and everybody else, right? Like it's part of our infrastructure with COVID, Zoom, and all that kind of stuff that we've had, this live streaming today. So we need to designate it as an infrastructure. We need to get with our international partners, our rivals and our allies and our partners, and designate it as an infrastructure. Like we're all going to use this, and we're not going to pollute this, we're not going to destroy this, we're going to reduce orbital debris, that kind of stuff, so that we all derive pleasure and opportunities out of this. And if we don't, then nobody can use this. And if we do that, I think then we prevent that, because nobody wants to go to war knowing that the potential impact is going to be so catastrophic that nobody can use it. It's very childish. It's what little kids would do. I'm going to destroy it so that nobody can play with these Legos anymore.
And there's already a model for that on Earth at the Antarctic Treaty, right? There's already a model for that.
I believe we have a question.
We'll start over here with the impressive young man to my left.
My question is about the space race, and do you think Russia and China will have more cooperation to try to beat us in the space race?
Great question.
Here, go. You take a first shot.
That's a really good question. How old are you?
I'm only 9.
No, you're not only 9. You're not only 9. That's an amazing question. I do hope that you see. I believe that you have to be the best at what you are, so that other people come and want to be with you, right? So we have to be the best technology, have the best technology. We have to have the most people that bring different things to our team, so that everybody sees that this is a team that brings other ideas into their product, right? And when you do that, then people come join you. I do not think that China and Russia will beat us to space for many reasons. One is that we have a lot of good allies around the world that want to be part of our team, because we're the cool guys. They're not the cool guys yet. They may become the cool guys, but right now we still are the cool guys, and they want to be part of our team. They want to wear, that lapel pin that he has on his shoulder. They want to have that. The minute that China, their lapel pin is cool, I don't have a problem working with China. We can work with China. They just have to follow the rules. They have to be ethical. They have to be, honest. They have to do all those things. But I think they will not be able to beat us, because our country is made up. I'm an immigrant to America. I came in 1984. My parents are from Afghanistan. I'm sitting on the panel here with distinguished scholars and you. And look at NASA. We bring in the world's best talent to our country, and we let them flourish, and they build our nation. I do not think Russia allows that or has the capability to harness the world's interest like the way we do. So as long as we are open and we allow people in, and people contribute and they work hard, I think we will be the cool guys, and everybody wants to be part of our team. The minute we look at it like it's us versus them, then I think we lose.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I think we have another question.
I don't have anything to add to that.
Hi, I'm Doug White. I'm a contractor with NASA working under Chris Moore's exploration capabilities team. Had the opportunity to ask this question at a higher level, and I'm interested in the perspective on the panel. Russia has recently said, they haven't given a time frame, that they're going to pull their support for ISS operations. I guess a two-part question. One is, how likely is that? And I know that operations are ongoing and unchanged as of right now. And two, from a NASA perspective, have we come up with contingencies on if that actually happens?
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and take a cut at that. So as far as what the politicians have been saying in Russia, it has not manifested itself in Roscosmos in our day-to-day operations. We are working with the Russians on working towards station to 2030 currently. And of course, NASA as an entity can't predict the way politics works out. But right now, our cooperation is going strong, and we are continuing to plan to go to at least 2030. And the second question was what?
That was it, I think.
Oh, backup plan. Yeah,
backup
sure.
plan, yeah.
So we're always looking at contingencies on board space station. And one of the contingencies is that we have to deorbit space station, due to unforeseen circumstances like a micrometeoroid hit or other catastrophes like a fire on space station. So we're working with all our partners for what could turn out to be a contingency. If the Russian politicians decide that they want to draw down their support with station, well, we'll work through that too.
I think we could sit here and listen to you guys all day long. You're amazing. But our time is up. And I would like to thank both of you, Sam and Mir, for your time. I know you're incredibly busy and your schedule is tight. But your contribution towards our journey to Mars is extremely appreciated. And we are very grateful for your extraordinary service to not only our nation, but to our worldwide space family. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alice.
Mm-hmm.